The same connection is weak. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Let me just make sure. Okay, it says it's building up an audience, so we are good to go. Even though it's saying connection is weak. And that's what I've kind of been playing around with. Okay, good evening, everyone. It's Spots Tuesday today. We're back. We're back. We are back for Spots Tuesday. And we are going to be talking about, what did I say we're going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about how we can communicate better during this exam period. A lot of kids have gone back to school, and many other kids are going back to school next week. So I'll give Facebook a few minutes to invite you guys. I did put up a post, I think earlier on today, about this. So it's Spots Tuesday, supporting parents of tweens and teens. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, I'll wait for some people. I'll wait for you guys to come up, and then I will go ahead. We won't be too long as well. Okay, good. I think it's better now. It doesn't say the Wi-Fi doesn't say weak connection anymore. That's good. That's good. How are you guys doing? Good evening. Good evening. And yes, give me a shout out once you've come up. Give me a shout out, and then we can start. It's going back. Connection is weak. Connection is weak, but the connection is better. It will be better. Sometimes the evening ones are a bit funny, but yes, we'll keep going. So good evening. It's Spots Tuesday. We're talking about. I want to share 5 communication mistakes that we shouldn't do. We should avoid during this period. I think it's so key, because as parents, we spent a lot of money, doing tutoring or just, doing these extra lessons. We've talked about going back to study. Make sure you do your work. Have you studied today? And things like that. There's a lot of, we've put in a lot of efforts for these exams and these tests that are going to be coming up very soon. But it's key. We have a role to play in that as well. And I think that's what I want to remind all of us today, that we do have a role to play in this. So I will wait a little bit. I'm just hoping that I'm on the right platform. I think I am. Just bear with me 1 second. Just bear with me 1 second while we bear with me 1 second. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right platform. Bear with me a second, and then we can keep going. But in the time being, I'm going to put on some little music while we wait. Okay, I'm just checking very quickly if I'm on the right platform. Yes, I am on the right platform. I am on the right platform. Okay, fantastic. I'm on the right platform. Okay, give me a shout when you've turned up, and then we can get going. If not, I'll probably start, and then more people can join us as we go along. Okay, so that would be great. That's great. That's great. I'm just sharing this. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, that's fine. I'm just one more share. Fantastic. Okay, good. Thank you, Tokumbo, for sharing as well. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll take this off now. Good, good, good. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for sharing it as well. Thank you so much. So we are going to be sharing. I know a lot of us, a lot of our children are taking or are going to be preparing for exams. They're either going to have their end of year tests. And these, we're talking about secondary schools and even primary school, the year 6, really, year 6. I know my daughter is in year 6, and she's going to be taking SATs in the next 2 weeks, I think. It's about 3 weeks. About 3 weeks, she's going to be starting her SATs. So this refers to, we're relating to primary, so year 6 kids and also secondary school kids. A lot of secondary schools kids, year 7, 8, 9, doing a lot of end of year tests, even year 10, they're doing end of year tests. Then year 11, starting your GCSEs very soon. You've got the year 12 and year 12 as well, and then year 13 as well, doing A levels. So this is a period where there are a lot of studying going on. I know during the holidays, if you went to the library, you'd see a lot of kids studying and chatting and, you know, doing what they need to do. But this is an exam period, it's an end of year test period. And as much as we love to support our children, as much as we want them to do very well in school and do very well in these exams, we have a big role to play. We have a big influence over how much they do, over how much they take their studying seriously. And that is why I want to just share like a few common things that parents do that are actually big no-nos, especially in the exam period. Communication. I've kind of learned over the years that when you get your communication right with your children, when you get your communication right, especially with your growing teens, when you get your communication right, you get the relationship right, you get the bonding right, you get the influence right as well. I think that is key, because I think I shared it some time ago where influence is actually better than the being authoritative. You know, you want to be more influential than being authoritative, because being authoritative, they can just kind of probably do what you say while you're there. But with influence, it goes beyond your presence. With influence, you touch them. They're doing things even when you're not there based on your influence. So influence is so important in our relationship with our kids, over being authoritative and being, you know what I mean in that situation. So it is key. Communication is key. Hi, Fanny. Thank you so much for joining. Communication is really, really key in the right relationships that we're going to have with teens. You see a lot of teens going out there, making wrong choices, getting into things that they're not supposed to get into. A lot of them stems from the lack of communication with their parents, or the misunderstanding of communication with their parents. So they could be communicating with their parents, but there's always this misunderstanding going on there. And you've just got to, I think at the end of the day, as parents, we've just got to make sure that influence is one of the main things that are in our, we've got to make sure that the why behind our relationship with our children is to get influence, to be influential over them, so that you know that they will come to you at any point. You know that even when you're not there, they're still going to be conscious to make the right decision. So our communication with our teens cannot just be thrown out there in the air. We've got to be very intentional. We've got to be very, very intentional. Hi, Bukola, and hi, T. How are you guys doing? Thanks for joining as well for Sports Tuesday. We've got to be very, very intentional in the way we communicate with our children. And that's why in this period, parents, amazing parents, in this period, there's a lot of pressure. They are facing a lot of pressure right now. There's a lot of work to be covered up. There's a lot of other stuff that they need to go and do in school. They've still got to keep up with their coursework. They've still got to keep up with a lot of things that they've got to do. And then also they go out there, they've still got to keep up with their friends. These are the kind of things that our kids go through. And even though sometimes it might look very small to us, to them it's really, really matters. To them it's really a big deal. And that is why it's key that we get our communication right every time, but especially in this period, because they are going through a lot of pressure. One thing that we as parents, hi T, how are you? Good. And hi Sophia as well, thank you for joining. Hi Titilayo, thank you for joining. And one of the things as parents that we know, I think I mentioned it just at the beginning, is we have put in a lot of work with our kids in terms of their preparations, especially for children that are doing the GCSEs or the A levels. You know, a lot of parents have spent extra money on lessons, on tutors, on private lessons, on books, on past question papers. We have done a lot in this period. We have done a lot helping to prepare our children in this period for their exams. But we can do more. And that's why I want us to talk about these things in communication. Because if you can get it right, then your daughter, your son, is more inclined to go and study and to know that they're doing it for right reasons. A lot of times when parents throw words out in the air like that, it puts these children off. It really does put them off. And they don't get to put in as much work as they would have done otherwise if we motivated them. These are things that we do very unconsciously. And that's why I want to kind of talk about them. We're going to have five points we're going to share today. Talk about them so that we're aware of them and so that we avoid doing them. Because one thing I love as parents is that we never know it all. If you're a parent who thinks that you know it all, then you're going to be stuck. You're going to be stagnant. You're not going to grow. As a parent, we are growing as our kids are growing. You can't say, oh, I'm an adult, so I know everything all about parenting. It's not true. We grow as our kids grow. We grow, we learn with them. Because our kids are all unique. They're all very different. So you learn in different ways as you grow with your kids. So it's so important that you stay open as a parent to learn, because that's what I do. I stay very open to learn, and I keep learning every day about parenting. No one knows it all in parenting. So let's talk about 5 big no-nos with communicating to your teens and your tweens and your children during this exam periods. Number 1, and when I thought about this one, I said, wow, this is so real. When for GCSEs and A levels, the results are going to come out in August. So when some parents can say, well, you'll regret this. You'll regret this when you open your letter in August. And I'm just giving an example, but I'm just saying, say the exams are in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks time. You're kind of telling them that, well, they will regret it if they don't. I know you're trying to tell them that they will regret it if they don't read, if they don't study, but that's not what they want to hear at that point. That's not what is going to motivate them to hear, to actually go and study. If you're saying, well, you're going to regret it if you don't study hard, or you're going to regret it the minute the letter comes in August, you are going to regret it. You're already prophesying negative. You're being negative. You're already prophesying a negative result that they're going to get in August. And that's really not nice. So rather than say you'll regret it, choose some other positive word to actually encourage them to study. Use encouraging words. Share stories of how you kind of struggled, because we didn't all just get it so easy studying in our own days. Talk about your struggles, how you struggled and how you overcame those struggles. But if you start going to them with the point of they'll regret it at the end, then that is so weak. That is so it's not motivating at all, and that really could put our children off. So don't predict negative futures. That's the key. Don't use any terms that would predict negative futures for your kids. You want to speak life to your kids. I think that's the key. We want to keep speaking life and not speaking being negative. Even if sometimes you're kind of worried, like, oh God, I want him to read better. I want him to read more. Don't speak negative. Don't bring that out in the atmosphere, because when you bring that out in the atmosphere, honestly, subconsciously they accept it. Subconsciously they accept it, and they say, you know what is the point when I'm going to fail anyway in August? What is the point when the letter is going to say that it's all wrong? So let's be very, very careful in the way that we actually share that communication with them. Okay, good. Number 2, there's another point. This point is where you say, oh, you'll never get a proper job if you carry on with that attitude. Whoa, that is so negative as well. You can't just tell them that they will never get a proper job. That again is prophesying that negative thing to them. Why would you tell them that they won't get a proper job if they carry on with that attitude? Rather, we should talk about how they can actually carry on with better attitudes, rather than saying, oh, you won't get a proper job. We've got to be very intentional when we're talking to them. Because these words actually stick with them. They actually, hi Bissy, how you doing? And hi Foma, how you doing? Yes, honestly, you've got to be very intentional when you're talking to them. So you're saying, okay, you're worried or you're concerned, which is fine. As parents, of course, we should be concerned. You're concerned that if they carry on with this attitude, that it's going to close doors for them. You know that, but the way you actually communicate that has to be more positive than that. It has to be, you have to use terms like, wow, for that engineering job that you want to do, or that whatever job it is that they want to do, whatever area in life that they want to focus on. You talk about that area and talk about the hard work that is actually involved in those areas. If you have a kid who is so much into football, give him examples of Mercy and all these guys and say how much work they have to put in to be able to excel in that area. Just talk about it. Share stories about successful people in those areas of life that you want your children to relate to. That's the way they're going to be motivated. That's the way they're going to pick up and say, you know what, wow, I want to be like him. I want to be like her. And they will now actually get on their, get in and then study hard. But if you go on with, well, you'll never get a proper job if you carry on with this attitude, it's not going to do them any good. Yes, you have the ability to do better when you put in more effort. Yes, that's a good way, because you're telling them that they have the ability to do better. So that's actually a good way, Oludayo. That's a good way to actually put it in. They have the ability. So you're telling them they have the ability. So they're going back to themselves and saying, you know what, I have the ability to do better. I've got that ability. You're not saying you will never get a proper job if you carry on with that attitude. That's not the way you're coming at. You're telling them they have the ability to. So they start to believe it. Oh, Dad said I have the ability. Mom says I have the ability. So I have the ability. I'm going to work harder. So that's definitely a very good way to put it. So that's number 2. Number 3, and this word, I hear it a lot. It's so common, but it's so damaging when we label our children. Oh, you're lazy. You're being lazy. You're being lazy. How is that going to motivate a child? How is that going to motivate your teen? How is that going to motivate them to say, okay, you know what? I don't want to be called lazy anymore. I'm going to now do my work. To be honest, we might think it's going to motivate them, but it does not motivate them. It doesn't motivate them. When we put these labels on our children, they're actually, and that's the thing, they're actually absorbing it, even though they may not do it intentionally. They're actually absorbing it. Okay, I'm lazy. I can't be bothered to do this. I'm lazy. They start to actually call themselves lazy. So we need to be very, very careful with the way we use our words. Oludayo says negative words kill their willingness to do well. And it's so true. And the thing about our kids is that, yes, in front of you, in front of us, they can just start reading like, okay, she's making me read, or he's making me read. Okay, let's study. The minute you walk out of that door, distraction comes their way, because you haven't helped them bring out the best in them. They're going to have times when they can't be bothered. They're going to have those moments. We had those moments. We've got to be frank and honest about it. We had those moments, but we've got to encourage them. When it's time to rest, let them rest. When it's time to study, get them to study. And do it in a very encouraging way. When you do it in a forceful way, you're getting them very disinterested. So T says, if my elder son said he doesn't understand this subject, I encourage him to meet his teacher and later his friend who understands better. I tell him, I know you can do it. Yes, definitely. Oh, let me go this way. I don't want to cover. Yes, exactly. But that's the right way to do it. Because when you're telling them that they can do it, they believe in you. The more you say it, and you guys don't give up in saying it. Even if you've said it 10 times, keep saying it over and over again. The more you tell them, the more they will believe. The more you tell them, when you're not there, they tap into those words that you've told them. They tap into those life words, because they are life words. They tap into those words, and those words are really the strength that they need to be able to tackle those moments when they don't feel like working hard and stuff like that. So that's really good, T. I like that. Yes, definitely. Encourage him to meet his teacher or meet his friend who understands better. Because a lot of times they do have friends that understand better, and they can, collaborate with each other, partner with each other, and learn from each other. So that's really, really good. So that's labeling. Don't label your children, please. Do not label them, because they do absorb those labels. Good. Another one is that I wrote here is when we're kind of telling them that they don't know the true meaning of hard work. So we're being condescending to them. We're kind of making them think that they don't really understand what hard work really means. They do understand what hard work means, just that they understand hard work on their own level. We have worked hard. We have come to where we have come to. But we have studied. Hi, Ronke Posh, how are you doing? We have done a lot of work. We have grown years. We have grown and grown for years. So our levels is quite different from their levels. So it's so wrong to start being condescending towards them, thinking, oh, they don't know much about hard work. They do know much about hard work. It's just that they know the hard work on their level. So it's wrong for us to say, well, you don't even know the true meaning of hard work, or you don't even know what you're doing. It is so wrong for us as parents to say those words. So it's important that, as I said, we keep encouraging them. What you want to do is, get to them. How are they studying? How do they study better? Because I must tell you, even from experience with my sons, they study differently. very, very differently. Sometimes I'm thinking to my my other son, I'm like, oh, I'm not seeing him studying as much as. But when he sits down to study, then he's studying. So it's important that we know the uniqueness of our children. They are all very, very different. Someone might be that kind of person that's just on the go, reading every minute. Oh yes, I want to read, I want to read. Some other kids may not be like that, and it doesn't make the other kid who is not like that less than the other kid. We can't do that. We've got to keep them as they are. We've got to appreciate their uniqueness. It's important that we appreciate their uniqueness, because when you appreciate their uniqueness, they feel more valued. They feel like, okay, you know what? My mom understands me. My dad understands me. And they grow in that uniqueness. Because when we start talking to them in ways, and I think that my next topic, my next part is on comparison. When you start talking to them in how they should be doing things, oh, they're not doing it this way, they're not doing it that way. When you start telling them, it's almost as if you want them to be somebody else. They can't be somebody else. They are unique in their own ways. They were born differently. They were, they're unique in their behaviors. They're unique in their way of thinking. They're unique in their way of understanding. So we've got to keep that uniqueness strong. We can't deprive them of their being unique. You cannot deprive your children of their uniqueness. You've got to appreciate their uniqueness and keep them there and let them grow in that uniqueness, in that unique way that they have, in that uniqueness that they have. Let them grow in that way rather than pushing them to grow in a different way. Okay. And number five mistake is when we compare. Why are you not as organized as your little sister? Why are you not reading as much as your little sister? Why are you not doing this as much as your brother? When we compare, we are breaking them down. When we compare, we are breaking them down. So for you, or for all of us to have this good influence on our children, for all of us to have this good relationship with our children during this period of unbelievable pressure, we have got to get our communication right. So those are the 5 mistakes. I'm just going to run through them again. Don't speak negative, or don't speak a negative future. Oh, when you get your results, you're going to regret it. Don't use those kind of words. Speak more positively. Or the number 2 is, well, you never get a good job if you carry on with that attitude. That also is being very, very negative. Labeling as well. We've talked about labeling. Do not label your child as a lazy child. It is not fair on them, and it's not going to do you any favors when you label your children as being lazy. A lot of times people just think it's a joke. Oh, it's just a word. But it's not just a word to your child. Your child is absorbing every word that you tell them, both negative and positive. And then the 4th one is when we condescending to them, making them think that they don't really understand what it is to work hard. That is really, really condescending, and kids do not relate to that as well. And the last one we had here was comparison. And T has said that comparison is bad. I don't like being compared, so I don't do it to my kids. Me too. I used to hate it so much as a kid when my uncles would come and say, oh, your sister's coming first. You're not coming first, because I didn't come first when I was growing up. I didn't come first in my class when I was growing up. But I used to hate it. Oh, I used to hate it. So T, I can relate to you, definitely. I used to hate it. My sister always used to come first in her class. So I used to hate the comparison. So definitely, I do not do that with my children as well. I don't do that. And Bissy says, comparing them affects their self-esteem. So true, Bissy. It affects their self-esteem, and they start to they get confused about who they really are, because you're comparing them to someone, telling them that someone else is better than them, and they're trying to aim now to be that person, and they leave their own selves away. They leave their own self behind, trying to be like somebody else, and that really does affect them. And when you see a child with low self-esteem, phew, the consequences are too much. The consequences are not worth it. So yes, parents, let us not compare. So those are the 5 big no-nos in your communicating to your children as they prepare for their exams. I know a lot of times, even in the way they study, a lot of times when they're studying differently from how you're studying, you get worried. I like to see, when I see my kids, like, when I see them studying for long, I'm like, yes, they're studying. But a lot of times, the kids, it's not all kids that can study for that long. It's not all kids that can have that long period of just study. A lot of times, some kids want to study a little bit, get a break, study a bit, get a break. Some kids can go on and on for hours, but some other kids can't. And it's important that we understand that. Another point I was going to mention as in this little summary that I was going to do is that even with music, a lot of times my boys, they have their music as they're studying. I'm like, oh, can you guys cut the music down, at least reduce it so that it's not blasting in your ears as you're studying. But sometimes, depending on the subject, that is actually okay. And I know for myself as well, when I do a lot of my figures, when I do a lot of my accounting stuff, I know I can operate with noise. With that, so in that term, I can understand when they're doing that. But I tell them that when they're studying, like when they're doing English and all these kind of reading subjects, then it should be quiet. But sometimes they could actually operate better with the music on. So you've got to kind of understand your child. You've got to understand how they operate, and then encourage them in that way that they operate. There's no point of making them lose out on their uniqueness. There is absolutely no point. It doesn't help any of us, and it doesn't help them either. And what we want as parents is actually to help them and get better in their studies. So I know as soon as this week, a lot of kids have started. Next week, more kids are going to start. So let us keep on encouraging them. I think that's the key notes that I have for today is let us keep encouraging our kids. Encourage them, be positive, speak positively to them, and let them understand that you understand where they're coming from, or you understand what they're going through. That is what I have for today. Yes, Missy, yes, some work better with music on. Yes, some work better with music on. Yes, they do. And that's kind of it for today. Most times they term us as old school. I know. Mine tells me, oh, but mom, your generation. I'm like, my generation. I'm still young. Don't say generation like as if I'm 100 years old. So yes, definitely. Yes, they do term us as old school, but we know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. And that's why it's important that we grow with them. That's why it's important that we stay open to learning. Because when we stay open to learning, then we're learning their terms, we're learning kind of things that are happening in their world, and we're able to communicate with them much better. So that's kind of what it is. Thank you so much, Itilayo. Yes. So what I was going to announce to you guys is that for Sports Tuesday, what I believe that will work better with Sports Tuesday, which is supporting parents of tweens and teens, is that we will now move, by next week, we will move to a group. We will be in a community. Because what I think is that sometimes, a lot of times, because we're just on the Facebook page, we're not able to share a lot of, sometimes a lot of questions. There could be some personal questions that you have to ask and stuff, and you feel more comfortable asking those questions in a community as opposed to on the page. So by next Friday, and I'll give you guys updates on it by next Tuesday, we will be doing our Sports Tuesday video in the group. But through the week, I will give you updates on the group, the link to the group, and we will be sharing more and more. I want to do this more and more and get to help you guys, help all of us actually. It's not just you guys, because I learn as well. Is to help all of us so that we can get this communication right. In this day and age, with our children, the internet, social media, we cannot be left behind in terms of communicating to our teens. We cannot be left behind in terms of leaving that gap. Because parents, if we leave that gap, if we have a gap in our communication with our children, that is when disasters happen. That is when problems come up, because there's that gap. So the aim of Sports Tuesday is to close that gap. The aim of Sports Tuesday is to do things, have these strategies, work out ways that we can keep that gap closed. Because when you have that gap closed, you win over the influence of your children. When you have that gap closed, your children are communicating better with themselves and with others. When you close that gap, you are communicating as well better with yourself and better with your teenagers or your tweens and your children. So that's what Sports Tuesday is all about. And it's really just a weekly group. I'm not gonna make it like a daily group. It's a weekly group, but I will be sharing more with you. I know that that's actually a better way to serve you guys better, so that even when you have older videos that you want to go back to, older lessons that you want to go back to, they're all there in one place, as opposed to going through different posts that I post every day. So that's really the aim of Sports Tuesday, supporting parents of tweens and teens, or even your other kids as well, but it's more on the communication side is what we're focusing on in Sports Tuesday. Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you so much. We must mind the gaps. Exactly. That's the whole theme for Sport Tuesday, is minding the gap, closing those gaps, honestly. Because it's in those gaps that a lot of problems have happened. It's in those gaps that a lot of our teenagers have made big mistakes. So we must definitely. How can you teach them on how to manage? Can you teach on how to manage them playing games, watching TV, using? Yes, we can do that for next week. Yes, Titila, that's fine. We can do that for next week, because yes, I've got that experience as well. We can let's do that for next week. Yeah, we'll be doing that in the group for next week. So let's definitely do that. I'll take a note of that, and I will get that prepared. We can deal with that. Yes, Titilaya, we'll deal with that. It's a very relevant topic, and it affects a lot of parents in this day and age. So yes, let's do that. Thank you so much, Ronka Posh. God bless you too. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining. I will let you go. Have a great week. Have a fantastic week. Make your week count. Hey, Layo, thank you. It's also recognizing there's a gap. Yes. Exactly. Definitely. Recognizing there's a gap, because if you're in denial that there's no gap, then you think that there's nothing to do. But there is a gap, and we have to recognize that. And we can look at ways of recognizing that gap as well. So I love that as well. Yes, definitely. We've got loads and loads to talk about in terms of communicating with our teenagers and our tweens, and just getting that communication better. Okay. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Have a good evening. God bless you. Thank you for joining. And for everybody else that's going to watch the replay, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your support. God bless you. I'm rooting for you all the way, and I'm not going to stop that either. See you later. Thanks, BC. Thank you so much. Love you too. Thank you. Thank you, Titilaya. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. I'll talk to you later. See ya. I see. Okay, we'll talk more. See you later. Take care, Laya. Thank you. Thank you, T. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.